Hey guys, Coach Keith Kepner here. I wanted to do a fight recap for you on the Bivol Ramirez fight last night on DAZN, and I want to give you a boxing coach perspective of it because I know there's a lot of folks that they give a commentator perspective or a fighter perspective, but coming purely from the place of being a boxing coach. For most of you guys, you don't know who I am, and that's totally cool. I completely understand. I'm a professional boxing coach. I also own Kepner Boxing, a location, Kepner Boxing, and the founder of Kepner Boxing franchises. So we have multiple locations across the Southeast, and we're looking to expand nationally, providing a place that you can learn real, authentic boxing technique, yet in a clean and supportive and professional environment. With people that I've coached, I produced multiple Golden Glove state champions from scratch year after year, and then also have had a couple guys go to the regional and national level, as well as had professional boxers fight on national television like Telemundo, ESPN, and Showtime. All right, a lot of the pros, they were like C-level fighters, but still I got people up to that level. And my own lineage of boxing coaching, I was coached by my father, Doc Kepner, who worked with countless amounts of amateurs and pros, and he was mentored by the great Chuck Bodak, who we teach the lineage of, or I teach the lineage of, and we teach the lineage of in our franchise system. And Chuck worked with over 50 world champions, including he was the Olympic coach for who was Cassius Clay, who'd go on to be the great Muhammad Ali. Anyway, a little recap of where I'm coming from with this. So let's talk about this fight, and hopefully I can give you guys some perspectives that you haven't heard before, or that maybe you weren't thinking about or you didn't see. Specifically, if you're just a boxing fan or a boxing enthusiast, all right? The first thing is let's talk about Bivol. Let's talk about what he did well, and then I want to talk about Ramirez and what he could have done to maybe get a better result in that fight, all right? Bivol, both the guys, it's a good fight because you got both undefeated guys going against each other. You have guys that are, there's not a tomato can against a legit guy, so it's going to be, typically, there's not going to be a crazy knockout, and obviously Bivol's not a huge puncher, and so you're not just going to have this, just like a smoke out type crazy fight. It's going to be more like how you saw, where it's 12 rounds of somebody winning, but it was a little bit back and forth, and obviously Ramirez is a good enough boxer that even if he's not at Bivol's level, he can protect himself throughout the entire fight reasonably well, as you would expect with a consummate pro that's 40-0 or whatever his record is, or of course it's 40-1 now. Let's talk about Bivol's foot placement, because Bivol is the orthodox boxer fighting a southpaw boxer, and Bivol is a smaller boxer, all right? So he's a smaller boxer fighting a longer southpaw. I can tell you from personal experience, being a shorter boxer, with my time that I boxed in the United States and Mexico, that when I was going against a longer guy who was southpaw, that was big trouble because that leg gets in the way, right? The lead hands interlock, but also the lead legs interlock. You saw early in the fight, the ref warned them about stepping on each other's feet. Smart ref to catch that, or good-eyed ref to get that. But a lot of times ref won't see that, and you can use that for your advantage, even though it is technically illegal. And so anyway, the longer guy can have that lead leg out there, and it's like a pull that you have to work around and deal with, all right? So it's really, it's a real challenge to deal with. Bivol did an excellent job of doing something very unorthodox in terms of what you hear your standard person say you should do in boxing, right? You want the lead leg outside of the lead foot, all right, of the opposite stance boxer. So if I'm orthodox, if I'm Bivol boxing Ramirez, I want to have my left leg on the left side of his right leg. I want the outside, because that's how I'm going to get my right hand. That's how I'm going to get my left hook. It's going to allow me to exit out. And if I don't, I'm going to be susceptible to his straight left hand, and then also his right hook. Now, this wasn't totally the case, though, because what Bivol was looking to set up a lot of times were things like jabs. And really like a 1-2-1 was one of his best combinations that I thought throughout the entire fight, was like a 1-2-1 combination. He did it coming forward as Ramirez was kind of fading out. And to me, that's what won him the fight, was getting those positions on the inside of the foot so you can land those shots inside, because either way there's openings, they're just slightly different, all right? And they do leave you vulnerable to things, but both sides leave you vulnerable to different things. And of course, he wasn't just stuck only putting his foot on the inside, he was going on the outside as well, but just the mere fact of his ability and his knowledge as a boxer to just go right inside of that leg to get past it so you get close enough to Ramirez, the longer guy, to hit him. Because let me tell you, if a dude's longer than you, like Ramirez was to Bivol, and you're worried about trying to get your foot around that foot, and you're going to be getting hit with punches while you're trying to do that. But he's got it right inside, because that's an alleyway. It's a pathway to get closer. And then you use that pathway to set up what you get when you're in that position. When your foot is on the inside of the foot of an opposite stance fighter, you're going to have your jab right down the pipe. It's going to be right there to hit. All right. Also, something Bivol does very well from his pedigree of where he's boxing out of, right? The style of those fighters is they come in and they come out. So he always has that rear leg a little bit set out back, because he can use that to get enough out of range. Now, and this is what allowed Ramirez to not be able to score the shots that Ramirez was trying to score on him, and Bivol used it excellently against the last few fighters that I've watched Bivol. I haven't studied his whole career, but at least the last few fights I've watched, he gets in there, gets those shots off, and he does an excellent job of exiting out, creating enough space that he doesn't get hit by whatever the follow-up attempt is, all right? And his movement is pretty good, and his hand defense was actually very good for this fight, as it's probably been for most of the fights, but I just thought that was a real excellent thing to see, was him really picking off blocking shots very, very well. Now, let's talk about Ramirez, and let's talk about what Ramirez needed to do to win. Because it's easy to, a lot of times, be Monday morning quarterback, and that's what obviously I'm doing by saying this is what Ramirez could do to win, but to just talk about all the things bad that the dude that lost did, all right? But let's talk about, like, if I'm coaching him, telling him what he needs to do in this situation, all right? So you have a guy like Bivol who he's exiting out like that. And now what did Ramirez have some success with? He had success with his right jab, because when Bivol did that exit out, he would typically exit out. He started turning, but a lot of times he exits straight out. So he comes in, he exits straight out again, and he's right on that line still. And as a longer guy, Ramirez, you can pop that right jab out there and even step with it, and you will overcome any distance that Bivol tries to create by stepping out. And you're gonna pop him. And he did that quite a bit, or not quite a bit, but he did that enough in the fight that you would say that that is definitely a point to win, that, in my opinion, his corner and himself should have doubled down on and kept repeating to take that alleyway away. Now, another thing that you need to do in order to take away that aspect from Bivol is easier said than done, way easier said than done, okay, especially against world-class world champion like Bivol, is get that sucker up against the ropes, man. You got to use your size, got to be okay with getting so close that you almost can't hit the dude, but you just got to force him back so that now he's on the ropes, and then you have to be committed enough to that position that you're going to cut him off while he tries to do his exit. Think about it. Most of the time, the guy, if you're southpaw and you're boxing orthodox guy, he's going to try to exit out to your right side, his left side. So you just got to be ready to stop that. And there were a couple times where he got Bivol on the ropes, and Bivol just went off that way, and Ramirez just kind of let it mutually happen. You see a lot of times things like that happen in fights where two fighters will mutually let something happen. Essentially, they almost have like a contract of the dance. It wasn't quite something as extensive as that, but I see a lot of times with tying up, right? One guy will tie the other guy up, and the other guy will just kind of accept the tie up. You can't do that, particularly if you want to win the fight and if you want to get to that level. But even I see it hold people back at the lower level as well. And so, but what happens though is if you get Bivol on those ropes, you lose one of his, outside of his hands, one of his biggest primary assets, which is his ability to step back. Like I said, he does a great job of stepping back, and you can nullify that with the jab. As a southpaw or opposite stance fighter, your jab is going to nail the guy as he jumps out. But also, when he got him on the ropes, now he's stuck. He's only got two different ways to move, basically, and you just need to time him on whichever way he goes and then put your shots together like Ramirez was trying to do, but Ramirez was trying to do that from the middle of the ring. Now, of course, Bivol set the pace of the fight by getting right up in Ramirez's grill, right up in his face, and it was pretty remarkable to see that for the first few rounds, that Bivol just right up in there on Ramirez, not showing him much respect, while also being responsible and technical, and that definitely, I know, got Ramirez out of his game plan, but it's up to Ramirez and up to his corner to get themselves back on track, and to also build off of any momentum they found. And then the last thing I want to say about the momentum that they found in that fight was the right hook. The lead hook was landing on Bivol, and it was part and parcel to Bivol's foot position, being inside on that southpaw's foot, and that makes it very easy for Ramirez to throw that shot, and there was just a home for it. He popped Bivol a couple times with that beautifully. Now, of course, Bivol came back beautifully off of that. You can't just be one shot on it, but that was another thing that he had a home. The key points to win that I saw that I believe should have been really just anchored down on Ramirez was that jab, that southpaw jab, the right jab, and the right hook, the lead hook, because those two things together, along with putting Bivol up against the ropes when you're able to and keeping him there, but at the very least, you're going to nullify the jump out with that jab as he steps out, because you're a longer dude, you're going to pop his head, especially if you step with that jab, because there's no way in heck he can get out. And then he has to change his plan, and he loses one of his things that he was beating you with. But a great fight, back and forth. I thought it was a very good fight. Might not be for the casual fan because there was no knockout or things like that, but still a very good fight. Ramirez is not a bad fighter. He got to that level for a reason, and a very tough fighter, obviously, as well. And Bivol showed his consummate boxing technique. And again, there's always a path to victory for a boxer. And I just wanted to kind of talk about what I saw as the way that Ramirez could have maybe had a path of victory, obviously against the much superior Bivol, but again, a good fight. I'm happy to see fights like this happen where Golden Boy fighter De La Hoya goes against Eddie Hearn's guy Bivol, and they make it happen. And it's just great to see things like that happen, and we got to see it more to see that level box each other, right? Two undefeated guys, you don't see that often, and good night to see. There are a couple other fights in the card that I want to talk about, but I'm not talk about them now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got some knowledge from it, and I'm going to be doing more of these recaps because I know that I end up sharing these insights with my fighters the next day or in the coming week, but I figured to share it with you guys. So have a great night.